Hello, so in today's video we're going to be looking at really a bit more about how to consider and look at property valuations. So if you're maybe looking to buy a couple of properties at the moment, or you're maybe out there viewing properties but you're unsure in terms of what the property might actually be worth, how to actually value the property so you can get a bit of an idea on if you're maybe looking at the right ballpark in terms of what to offer for it, and certainly what the estate agencies or the vendors asking for it as well. There's a certain couple of things you can maybe consider or take into account really when you're looking at the property valuation. So when I first started and got involved in property, the very first property I purchased, I had no property experience, no kind of background or idea on how to value a property, and because of that we clearly, when we look back now, we overpaid for what we kind of could have got the property for at the time, just because of really we didn't look at a lot of different things that we should have considered in terms of checking things like the sold prices, checking things like the market comparables for direct comparable properties, not just kind of similar properties or properties in the same kind of location, but ones that are ideally kind of on the same street, ones that are ideally the same amount of bedroom sizes. So there's certain things to kind of consider when you're looking to value a property, and I just want to kind of give you a bit of an insight into that and a bit of a run through and cover some of those elements really in this video for you. So first of all, when it comes to doing valuations, there's three things to kind of consider, or three main things to consider when it comes to what that property might be worth. So the first one is sold prices. So luckily in the UK you can easily get access to recent sold prices, and when I say recent, they're usually a couple of months out of date because it takes that long for the information to come through from Land Registry, but they're certainly valuable in terms of looking at that as part of a data set to see what the property might be worth. So recent sold prices for properties within a certain street, certain postcode, a certain area, and loads of different ways you can kind of do that. I'll list some of the resources below this video, but you've got sites like Rightmove, Mouseprice, Zoopla, that have a tool for checking sold prices within a particular area, and that's great to give you a bit of an idea in terms of what prices properties have sold for within a certain time frame, whether that's that year or whether it's a couple of years ago. But you need to kind of take that with a little pinch of salt in terms of what the market is doing at that point in time. So if, for example, the market is going up in value and there's quite an increase in terms of activity happening in that particular area, then the sold prices won't necessarily give you a direct result as to what's happening on that day, because some of the sold prices might now be out of date when you're looking at them, say 3 months back, 6 months back. The market could have moved on by then, and it could have changed completely, and obviously the prices could have changed and differed. But it just gives you a bit of an idea in terms of what the prices should be worth for properties in that area, and what they obviously achieved around that time frame that the sold prices are active or accessible for. So that's one kind of data set to kind of consider. The second data set is going to be on the market comparables. So there you're looking at things like as direct comparable as you can get. So if you're looking at a 2-bedroom terrace and it's a certain style, you want to try and mimic that type of property, that style, that obviously size of property. So if it's 2 bedrooms, 1 reception room, try and compare that to another 2-bedroom, 1 reception room, not another kind of 2-bedroom, 2 reception room, or a 3-bedroom, 1 reception room. Obviously you get the idea in terms of the kind of direct comparables, and the better. Obviously the closer the properties, the better as well. If they're on the same street, perfect. If they're on the same kind of row or side of the street, again, perfect, because sometimes some properties on a street, you might have one side that are going to be slightly larger in terms of either the rear yard, the kind of front yard if they have one, the size of the property, the layout. So all of these different elements can kind of change what the value of the property might be worth. So trying to get as a direct comparable as you can is going to kind of help. And again, that's kind of take into account really what the market's doing at the time. And that's where the third kind of element comes into it, and that's really market sentiment and what the individual, the estate agent, if it's being sold by an estate agent, and obviously the market is telling you that it's kind of worth. So if, for example, you've got a property that's been on the market for say a year, valued at £100,000 or £200,000 or £300,000, and it's not changed in price, and it's had no offers, and it's not really got any interest kind of happening, then you can see that the value is probably incorrect. Even if the sold prices are saying that it's about the right level, even if the comparable prices are saying it's about the level, if it's generated no interest, if it's not getting offers, then it's not going to be worth that value, because at the end of the day it's only going to be worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. So that's why you need to take into account kind of market sentiment when you're looking at those kind of house prices. So how to use this in kind of the real world, or how to kind of adapt that to some properties you're maybe looking at. So for example, if you've got a property that you're considering buying, you've checked the sold prices, that all looks kind of good, looks like you're on the right sort of level or ballpark. You've checked the market comparable prices and you think, okay, well there's similar properties on for 5 grand more, 10 grand more, 5 grand less, whatever it kind of might be, but it gives you a bit of an idea on the insight in terms of what the level might be. And then you want to see, okay, well, how accurate are those kind of market comparables? What's the kind of the level of demand in that area at the moment? What's the level of how quick is the property selling? How are they going for the market value? That type of thing. I'll put a couple of resources again under this video where you can check things like that in terms of time on market, how long it takes for a property on average to sell, those types of things. But you really want to be doing a little bit more research in terms of what other properties are selling for, not just sold prices and on the market prices, but what their kind of motivations are for those sales. So if you were to look at some comparables and you've got maybe a repossession down the street that's on the market for £10,000 less, then the reason why it's on the market for £10,000 less is probably because it's a repossession, and probably because they're trying to generate a lot of interest. And it might not go for that price, it might go for higher, or it might go for slightly lower, but it gives you a bit of an idea in terms of why those comparables are going to be slightly different, by looking into a little bit more of an insight in terms of the reasons and the motivation for sales of those comparables you're looking at. So if you do make a short list of maybe 3 or 4 properties that are comparable to the one you're looking at, don't just take them on face value. Don't just say, well, this is on for that price and that's okay, so that must be what it's worth. Do a little bit of research, do a little bit of digging, go into the estate agents, speak to the agents about why the vendor's looking to sell, how long it's been on the market for. And again, there's certain kind of tools I can show you kind of to say time on market and things like that. That'll give you a little bit of a kind of a quicker insight, a bit of a cheat in terms of trying to get that data without having to speak to the agent. But certainly trying to find out why that vendor's looking to sell, certainly finding out why their motivation or what the motivation is and how much interest it's had as well. That's going to help you get a much better idea on what the potential market value might be. So look for those 3 kind of core elements. Don't just look at sold prices, and don't just look at on the market prices for comparables, and don't just kind of consider market sentiment. So you think it's really buoyant, let's kind of give any offer that we kind of can to get the property locked in. Take into account those 3 facts, and that'll help you give a more rounded kind of idea on what the property valuation should be really for that particular property. So hopefully that's give you a little bit of a kind of an idea in terms of some elements to kind of consider with your property valuations. Again, below this video I'll give you a couple of resources to look at. It gives you a bit more of an idea on I suppose certain things to kind of consider when you're looking at a property, and it just helps to make sure you're on the right track, make sure you're not kind of going to really be paying over the odds when you're looking to put an offer in on the property. Obviously you want to still achieve the best possible price you can. You don't want to be going in with silly offers in terms of on the market prices sometimes, depending on the market. If it's going up, sometimes you have to. If it's stagnant or if it's going down, you certainly don't want to. You don't want to be putting kind of in full market value offers. You want to be buying the property at a discount, but you can't do that unless you understand what the market value might be. You can't do that unless you understand what the true kind of property's value is in that particular area at that particular point in time. And these are the same things that surveyors, estate agents, they all take into account as well when they're looking at properties. They don't just look at sold prices, they don't just look at comparables in terms of what's on the market at the moment. They look at the whole picture, they look at kind of what the market's doing, they look at the motivation behind properties, they check the detail in terms of, is it a tip? Does it need a lot of work doing to it? Is it a kind of a rundown property, derelict that needs new kitchen, new bathroom, as a refurbishment? All of these different kind of elements that kind of come into place. They'll take that into account when it comes to the valuation. So yeah, it's important to not just look at one data set, look at a couple. Hopefully you found that help. Again, any questions, comments, please feel free to leave them in the video section below, or again, if you want to have a chat, more than happy to kind of catch up and help where we can. Drop us an email at rob@propertyinvestmentsuk.co.uk, and hopefully, again, as I said, hopefully you found that helpful, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.